There's a human story in every cause.
Welcome to Agency for Change, a podcast from KidGlov that brings you the stories of changemakers who are actively working to improve our communities. In every episode, we'll meet with people who are making a lasting impact in the places we call home.
Hey everyone, this is Lynn Weinman, President and Chief Strategist at KidGlov. Welcome to another episode of the Agency for Change. There is a great quote from actor Milton Berle. It goes, "If opportunity doesn't knock, build a door." And let me tell you, no one knows that better than a woman who dares to start her own business. Today's guests are Maggie Hart and Brittany Zampella, co-founders of Farsighted Creative, a purpose-driven filmmaking company out to capture goodness with a capital G. These two are dreamers, creators, and purpose-driven leaders after my own heart. I can't wait for you to meet them and learn more about their great impact on the world. Maggie and Brittany, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having us.
Yeah.
I love talking to purpose-driven women entrepreneurs in the creative space. So I've really been looking forward to this conversation. Would you two take a minute to just tell us more about your organization and the work that you do?
Sure. So we run a film studio in Boulder, Colorado called Farsighted Creative, and we make narrative films, documentaries, and just other video content with the aim of putting good into the world, things that cultivate empathy, sustainability, just making the world a better place. We love making our films and working with ethical, sustainable brands and other filmmakers to help their films be sustainable as well.
Mm-hmm. I know people can't see me because this is audio, but I'm smiling from ear to ear because I think there are so many parallels between KidGlov and Farsighted Creative. And I think that's wonderful. So how did the two of you start working together? And I hear you're best friends. What's it like to work with your best friend?
Yeah, we first met in 2019. Yeah, 19, early 2019. And we were both working for another documentary production studio. And we kind of always developed this habit. I would always go into her office and talk about all these ideas that I had for stories or films, or I found out she was a filmmaker, of course, and got to learn more about the projects she would made. And I just kind of fell in love with them and had kind of at that time newly developed a passion for like really powerful stories that were different than I'd heard. We had ideas for a long time, and I think the summer of 2019, we did our first short film together. And I fell in love with working on films and on a set, and we kind of just started dreaming about what would we want to do more of ourselves. And I remember we had a meeting at Chick-fil-A. We were just having lunch, and Maggie asked me, like, what's your ideal job scenario? And I kind of rattled off a few things, and she said, well, I guess we just make a production company that does all of those things. And I was like, you could just do that? So that's kind of how it started. And I mean, working with your best friend is one of the greatest gifts in the world.
Oh,
I definitely would not be able to do this on my own. I think we joke around where we say if one of us is at 10% one day, the other's at 90, and we can, help each other out on those times. And there's just so much fulfillment in that, both from a connection standpoint. We know each other really well. We joke around and say as well that we are the same person and we share a brain. So yeah, that helps a lot just in making decisions and in creatively partnering. It makes things half as hard and twice as good when you're with
half as hard and twice as good.
I didn't make that up.
That's amazing. That should be like your business motto. I know that.
You can thank Sarah Groves she wrote a song about it. So I did not make it up.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that's kind of, I think, captures what what it feels like for me, at least.
Oh yeah.
It's hard.
Well, we are
twice as good.
the same thing.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, first of all, I think somebody needs to alert Chick-fil-A because I can totally see the commercial, the two of you on their red couch interacting with someone on their staff, talking about the high-powered Chick-fil-A meeting that launched the perfect business. I love that. So a lot of good things going on. Tell me, I'm really curious as a female founder myself, did you have any challenges in starting and running a woman-owned business?
So I think, I mean, it's interesting because coming up in the film industry, there are challenges for women. I think starting out in film school, like I tell everybody, like my stories about like good old film school are now horror stories that coming up in a boys' club, and there's been a lot of, I think, progress since the last like 10 to 15 years have been transformative. But I think we're still very much aware that I think it's like only 11% of directors are women.
Wow. I didn't realize. I actually thought we had come farther than that.
Right.
I remember days in the marketing business being the only woman in the room. I remember days being the only pregnant woman in the room for sure when I had my kids and was younger. But on the marketing side, I feel like change is happening. And I've got to believe it's going to follow with film as well, because people like you are making a difference.
Yeah, I think there has been growth and there is that wanting to make a difference. I think it's daunting at times, but and then especially taking that and creating our own company where we're like, okay, now we're also entrepreneurs, which was kind of like a side product. Kind of like we want to have the company that we want to see, like we were talking about, like it would be great. And I was like, well, I guess we just have to start that company. We don't think it exists anywhere. So but I think to your point, when we started, I think it did feel kind of like lonely or like we were not sure how to navigate it. But we've also found a really good support system in a lot of the women. Like we're in a group, like shout out to Women in Sustainability.
Yes, we talked to Becky Megas a couple months ago. She's amazing. Yes,
we love her.
So I think the challenge is also helped by other women who recognize that it's a challenge, and this like community of people. There's also like Women in Film in Colorado and other groups that are like really encouraging, and there feels like less of a sense of competition and more like we're all here to build each other up. So I think that's helped amidst kind of that challenge.
Good for you.
Yeah, it's still definitely daunting to hear, 11% are female directors and I think we've made great strides in our culture and seeing more women CEOs and entrepreneurs and all that stuff, but it is still, there's still a lot of effort that has to be exerted, I think, for women. Right. But yeah, like you said, we are so fortunate to have such a great group of women here in Colorado. And even, we have friends and stuff that are just, you never feel like you're all fighting for the same thing, like fighting against each other. I think there's a great abundance kind of mindset here in our community that there's room at the table for everybody. And let's see how we can help each other up and refer each other. And I think that's what makes it encouraging, because alone it is daunting, but together we really can like clear some of those glass ceilings that might still be left over.
For sure.
But it takes doing that together rather than just pulling up your own bootstraps and trying to do that yourself.
Yeah. Here's to going from 11 to 22 to 33 to 44 to 55, right?
Yes. Yes.
Let's accelerate that. I love what you said that about women supporting each other in business too, because I have found the same thing from women-owned businesses, how, we might be in a similar space, but we have a different niche. And I have a group of women individually and sometimes together that I can get together with as well. And we can provide each other advice like, hey, what are you doing about this? Or what are you doing about that? Or if I get a project that doesn't really fit our niche, I can say, you ought to talk to my friend and she maybe is better suited to help you out with this and vice versa. And I
Mhm.
love that part of business as
Yeah.
well. So
It was
I want to move on to something I've heard you say, and I love the way you say it. You guys have given us a couple of good nuggets to work with here, but you talk about doing good with a capital G, and that being at the core of your business, whether that's making good content or partnering with brands that are doing good things. Can you talk more about that philosophy and how you arrived there?
We both, at our core are storytellers at heart. We
Yeah.
love telling stories. Maggie's background, is in film. I have a background in music and storytelling and just developed that experience with filmmaking as well. And I think we've really been drawn to this idea that film and storytelling is a vehicle for empathy, and that
Oh, yeah.
empathy is such a critical part for our culture and is so necessary for creating change. And that can happen so powerfully with film, in 2 hours, 90 minutes, a 10-minute short film, you can take people on a whole journey and really lead them towards a place of being a different person, or feeling empowered, or feeling seen, or feeling heard, or allowing them to see and understand other people that maybe they didn't previously.
Yeah.
So that kind of heart and, I would say, value really bonded us as friends and embedded itself just very naturally into what we want to create. We both have experience in creating content in various spheres where we're just kind of pumping stuff out, and sometimes you need to make money,
Yes,
so
sometimes you have to make, you do.
things like that.
Yeah, you can't take your eye off that ball completely. But what I love about where we are in today's current business environment is there are a number of businesses, a whole wave that are focused on making positive impact. And I fully believe that's only going to increase, because I keep seeing research that shows people want to align with brands that are making the world better, whether that's as a consumer or an employee. I just think that that is such a positive thing to come out of maybe the last few years, which have been difficult. But I feel like the world is going in the right place in that regard.
Yeah, and I think for us too, there's so much, people are becoming more aware, and like you said, these cause-based things. And for us, especially with that good with the capital G, we wanted to make things, like Brittany said, with empathy, but also with hope. That really, we were at this panel for one of our films, and we were talking with a group of high school students. And this girl was probably 16, 17, and she asked us, how I'm anxious all the time. How do you with anxiety? And I was like, yeah, I totally get why you're anxious.
Right.
So many things. And so for us, we didn't want to stop with content that just makes you aware of these causes or these things, but like, here's the solution, or here's the hope, here's the good that you can hold on to.
And even like the idea behind our name, Farsighted Creative, is that a farsighted person, if that's their vision, they can see far away really clearly. So we wanted to create content that kind of moves past the noise of what's currently happening. And we have to be aware of things. We're not saying like turn a blind eye to it, but look at it. And then now, like, let's create content that allows us to see what is possible for us. What's the world that we can create? What's the opportunity there? Because we believe that, human beings are incredibly resilient and innovative, and there's all sorts of opportunities and ways we don't have to stay here. So what's the story? What are the messages we can put out there that shows the world, hey, like, there's opportunity for us here, and how can we get there? And I think storytelling is a great vehicle for inspiring that hope and also empowering people to walk in that.
The other thing I like about storytelling that sometimes people don't realize is that when you're thinking about doing something that's memorable, that inspires behavioral change, storytelling is such a powerful vehicle. And it's it's sometimes so easy to go, I just need a list of bullet points. I just need to tell people what to do. But humans don't really respond to bullet points and directives as well as they do. If you can get in their heart and they can feel it, then they're going to remember and it's going to make a difference. So I love what you're doing. You're so thoughtful. One thing too, you really opened my eyes to, I don't really think about filmmaking as being eco-friendly, but you're very thoughtful in your production process. Can you talk me through that? Like, what are some of the things that you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's very true that film sets especially are notorious for waste, or they can be extremely wasteful.
Yeah.
When we were talking about kind of filmmaking and being aware of the climate crisis in our day and age, it was a discussion about, you know, this can be a wasteful industry, and should we just, like, I had a friend who was a filmmaker who I was talking about the climate crisis with her, and she was like, I don't think films are helping, and she quit filmmaking, and I think she went and joined Extinction Rebellion and is now like going over the world. And I was like, you know, good, that's like, I think we need people in all avenues to combat the climate crisis. But for us, I think, one, talking about the power of storytelling and how much that can be an avenue for change. And two, I think seeing the waste, I think a film set can use somewhere between 40,000 and hundreds of thousands of single-use plastic water bottles.
Yeah.
It's just
right. Because everybody's passing out the water bottles.
Exactly.
Right.
So we saw opportunity. We were like, well, swap it out with, you know, aluminum or steel water bottles that are also fun crew gifts that have their name. That's like a memory, you know, a memory from the set, and do that instead of t-shirts, which saves on cotton production and that sort of thing. We kind of got started down that road of, well, how can we make this sustainable? So it's things like that. It's the, you know, low energy equipment. Craft services is another huge opportunity.
Right.
I could go on all day about kind of the things that we discovered and kind of got a little nerdy about as far as making sets zero waste, and also trying to figure out, we worked with a local company to figure out how you would carbon offset a film set as well, which was
wow, what a great idea, you guys. As a person who is not a filmmaker but has been on several sets doing videos and commercials and so forth, I do always look forward to craft services, which is the table of snacks and food and drinks. And you kind of, there's a little bit of gluttony involved there, I think sometimes. I hate to say, but yeah, it's not all, it's not necessary, I think. And if you can do it in better, more eco-friendly ways, I think that's really fantastic. Once again, speaks to how thoughtful you are. And I know the two of you are really organized, really planful, but maybe one thing that didn't work out the way you expected in planning. I understand you literally started your business just a few months before pandemic and lockdowns. And I know lockdowns were particularly tough for filmmakers because you couldn't be around people and film them. What was that like, being new entrepreneurs at that moment in time?
Yeah,
that definitely
unexpected. It was, you know, it was an interesting mix because we did have a lot of canceled shoots. It took a while to get COVID compliance officers and for people, even masks and vaccines. And it took a while for us to get there. For a long time, people just weren't going on set, you know, as we all know, or doing much of anything. So that definitely, you know, cost us some business and opportunities. At the same time, though, we did get a lot of opportunity for post-production work.
Oh, smart.
Yeah, we're full service post-production house as well, from editing, color grading, sound mixing, I mean, the whole 9 yards. So we actually had a lot of people reach out to us also remotely, from New York, LA, could just mail us a hard drive. They maybe organize their own, very controlled set to shoot things.
Well, there was one that was actually it was kind of a creative challenge, because it was this company in New York that was aware of the isolation and wanted to create a spot called like What is Community, and creating community with women. They're a great women's wellness company. Wellness. And so the challenge was, we can only interview these women one at a time. Can you make it look like they're in the same room?
My goodness. Were you able to do that?
A little bit. Yeah, a little bit.
Wow.
Some masking and a few creative things. Make it look like they were dancing together.
And it was, I mean, if you hadn't known they weren't in the same room. So that was like a fun, I think COVID also did present really fun challenges for us. If we come across something like that, we like to try and see, how can we make this work?
Yeah.
Our just business philosophy, I would say, or just, I think it's part of being producers. There's a great producer's joke that says, how many producers does it take to screw in a light bulb? And the producer says, well, does it have to be a light bulb? And it's that's what you do. You're always trying to innovate, and you're always like, well, I'm going to get creative. And so I think that provided some good opportunity there for us. And the stuff that we didn't have, like I said, but for the most part, I think it was a great opportunity for people to also see the power of video. So there was a lot of businesses, as we know, that couldn't run their in-store places, and a lot of people were shifting to video content.
Yeah, they needed the video to do their business when they couldn't do it in person. That makes sense. I think once people realize, like, hey, this is not going away in 2 weeks, right? And it's a big deal, but yet I think it kind of took, all right, this is a bigger deal than we thought, but also we're going to get through it, right? Yeah. Like we kind of had to go through those peaks and valleys. And then it was like, all right, I remember doing this for myself and for KidGlov. I'm going to shift my mind and go, we're not going back. Right. So what do we need to do? What do we do now? And that was really helpful to kind of, at that moment in time, make that shift. And it sounds like you made it pretty quickly.
Yeah, well, it's funny because we did start so close to the pandemic that there wasn't much to shift from. Like when
that's a good point.
Is kind of what we're doing. This is almost normal business for the first couple of years. Over the last maybe year or two, we're like, okay, now what does it look like? That's really crazy. That was normal business, and now you're shifting. I love that. We had produced films before, so I think the only thing that was super tough was I was working on this indie film that was supposed to shoot in LA, and trying to navigate COVID with sets and crews and COVID compliance and all of that. I was like, indie filmmaking is hard enough.
Yeah, right.
Now we feel like we can do anything.
Yeah.
Because that was a whole added.
Let's tie both hands behind your back and put a mask on you, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Tough. Wow. So I know also in addition to doing commercial work, you do documentaries. And I'm going to say, I have watched your latest documentary, which is called A Good Neighbor. Woo, what good work and what a powerful story. Can you tell us more about what inspired you and what that process was like?
Thank you. Yeah. I'm trying to think. So we're very sustainability, climate is like really important to us. And we have a good friend who does a lot of climate work in Colorado. And I think we interviewed her for our podcast about it for Earth Month, and kind of, as we talked about, wanting to find that empathy piece and the humans, and asking her, I think Brittany asked her.
Yeah, I remember asking her, but sustainability, I was like, I do care about it, but I feel like something's a link is missing. How can I care about this more? How can I develop more empathy for this? And our friend, she said that one thing that really inspired empathy for her was meeting this woman named Lucy Molina. And she started to tell us her story and her experience. And we kind of just jokingly said, like, we should
sounds like
make a documentary about her, talk to her.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's kind of, we got introduced to her, and then of course we met with her ourselves. And I think we both were brought to tears a few times just hearing her talk. I mean, as you know, it's hard not to feel with her when you hear her struggle, and you see everything she's up against. And that just made us realize, like, she was just starting to run for office for city council that year, I think that week that we talked to her. So it was one of those things where either like, we're going to do this now or it's not going to happen. So we just grabbed cameras, we just started, which is not the typical way you do documentaries. But we knew we had to tell this story. So.
Yeah. For people who haven't seen it, you want to just give us the short story and maybe where people can find it if they'd like to see it?
Yeah. Essentially, so Lucy Molina lives in Commerce City, Colorado, which a few years ago was named the most polluted zip code in the nation.
Yikes.
And ranks above the, top however many, very, very polluted area. And her kids were getting sick, and just not enough was being done to protect the people of that community. So she has been an activist for years. And when we met her, Brittany said she was about a couple weeks away from running for city council to try to right the wrongs and, try to find, it's a lot about environmental justice and that. So we just followed her. And so following her on her campaign, using her story as jumping off points for people to learn about what's going on in Commerce City, that there's a lot of communities like this in the country. And, they call them sacrifice zones because the industry has such a presence there.
Yikes. That is not something you put in a Chamber of Commerce brochure, right? We're the most polluted zip code.
Right.
And we're a sacrifice zone. Oh gosh, that just honestly makes my heart hurt.
It's tough. And it was very kind of talking about where it came from. Like, I grew up in Colorado. I lived not too far away, and we all knew that Commerce City was not the nicest part of town, but just learning about it and putting Lucy's face to that struggle really made it come front and center. And we have people who have seen it, because we have shots of kind of the pollution in the area, and people say they can't drive through Commerce City the same way anymore. Yeah. They're like, I was just drove. And so that's great news. That's great to hear for us, just that the awareness and people are really responding to it.
Yeah. Yeah. So if people want to learn more about the film, they can go to agoodneighborfilm.com. It's our website for it. You can watch a trailer on there. We're still submitting to a handful of film festivals, a lot of them local to Colorado, but also, across the US as well. So we'll post those on there. We attend those.
Great. That's great.
We're planning and coordinating with local orgs and stuff to do some community focused screenings in the North Denver area, particularly because it is another local election year.
Right.
We are.
Is Lucy running again?
She is. Yes. Okay. We won't say too much more about what she's running for, just to avoid any spoilers. But yeah, she's going to be active, and several others in the community. So Hart was really that this film would be an asset for the community, both educating a lot of people that live there and don't know. Because Lucy even talks about she was sick for a long time, and it took a while before someone connected the dots between the health problems and the pollution.
Yeah, a lot of people in the community aren't even aware of the extent of the problem.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So hoping this be a tool for them too.
Yeah. So it's not available, it's not streaming or anything right now, but if anyone is interested in watching it, they can contact us through A Good Neighbor Film to help training or bring people together. We'd love to have people watch it.
Fantastic. We're going to make sure that link is in the show notes as well. So people can link up to it. So I love the image of the two of you hearing about this story, getting excited, just starting to film. But I know, being a purpose-driven business owner myself, as much as you want to just do all the things to help all the people, you gotta balance some business as well.
Yeah.
How do the two of you find the balance between purpose and business?
Yeah, it's a hard thing. It's a hard line to walk, I feel like. But I think for us, it's, as we've grown and developed over the last few years, we've really tried to have that come from understanding our own value first. And I think even just taking stock and realizing that, we do have good to offer, and we have almost 15 years of combined like expertise in this field. And so kind of letting that kind of inform the types of people we partner with, or our own stories, and communicating that value maybe to potential clients we might have as well. Because, you could hire someone on Fiverr, you could pay $15 for them to make you a little video.
You
but
can have AI do a video for you too, but it's not going to be very good. Yeah.
Right. It's what you don't get is, again, that experience. And, you could hire someone and you could pay that $15 an hour or whatever it is, but it could take them twice or three times as long, where it might take us an hour.
Yes.
And so I think understanding those kind of pieces and being, forthright with those types of communication pieces too is a big part of the conversations we have. And also communicating how that benefits a business as well, or an organization, and how that helps them achieve their goals. The whole reason for wanting to create high quality content is for them to succeed.
Yes.
Not just for us to profit, but for them to profit. But, ironically, like we would do sustainable work and ethical work for free if we could.
If you could, right? Yeah.
Like you said, it has to also be sustainable for us, like we need to be able to make a living off of that. And it goes both ways. So I think it's something that we're definitely like still growing in, and we're excited for those opportunities, I think now, and to see, we have a good slate of things that we can point to that we're really proud of, and that we're really confident in our abilities and our skills. And we're excited to continue to bring that to stories, to projects, to brands, organizations that also have powerful stories to tell. And so I think communicating all of those things helps us kind of navigate that and figure that out.
Well,
absolutely.
We have a lot of great clients who get it, who we love working with. We did there's a website called Simple Switch that just switch everyday items for sustainable items. And they were great. And coming up with a holiday campaign for them was really creatively fun and fulfilling. And the pay was very fair. So I think there's a lot of great understanding with a lot of the people that I work with, or that we work with.
Yeah.
So it can be both, we don't have to choose.
Yeah, exactly.
Creative.
I find that too. I think sometimes people don't realize that purpose and profit can go together.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
And I think in more and more cases, organizations are going to be looking more for those things to go together as well, which once again, I think is a very positive thing in all of our future. So
yes, for sure.
So you two, you have made it from working together to the fateful lunch meeting at Chick-fil-A, to the start of your business, to surviving the pandemic, to doing beautiful work and launching a documentary, all in a few short years. I'm curious, what's next? What's on the horizon for the two of you and Farsighted Creative?
Yeah, so we're still in the middle of releasing our doc, so we're still really excited about our doc and getting that out into the world.
Nice.
We've been asked a bunch of times what's the follow-up and what's more to discover, and we've had a lot of people say, "Oh, you should make a doc about this now or that now." It's almost overwhelming to be like,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Let us finish the first one first before we tackle another one. Yeah.
Exactly. We'd love to do more of that. We have some more film projects that we'd like to do. Working with more brands. We're always trying to find more people to partner with to promote their products or their business. And then the sustainability coordinating is something kind of new that we're rolling out, is working with other films or production company, whether that's films, commercials, whatever work they're doing. We've acquired a lot of knowledge about how to make sets and even post-production sustainable.
Nice.
So we're getting that out to people to, I think they, like when COVID hit, they created COVID, what is it? COVID compliance officers. And so now we're trying to push sustainability coordinators to have somebody.
Oh, right. I think that's such a good idea for sure.
Yeah. We're seeing a lot of that in some of like the big studios, like, HBO Max now has a really, solid kind of sustainability arm. And there's a lot of it are doing that, which is encouraging, but that can be harder, or seemingly harder, I would say, for indie filmmakers, because indie projects can be hard to get funded anyway,
And then to take that extra, you're kind of flying by the seat of your pants a little bit, and then to go, wait a minute, I'm going to take a minute to be thoughtful and sustainable and eco-friendly here, right? Yeah.
So I think we really want to show that, hey, it actually may not be as costly as you think. Again, we can get creative about things, but also hopefully make that the norm. There's all sorts of ways that can really be an asset to the indie filmmaking world. That's kind of our heart is the indie. We live in that space. We love the indie filmmakers and that world. So really making that attainable for them in particular is something we're really excited about.
Very nice. Very nice. So I want to ask the two of you my favorite question next. And we've done nearly 200 podcasts and asked this on every podcast, but I am so inspired by motivational quotes. I'm so lucky to get to talk with inspirational people like the two of you on this podcast. Could you each give us a few of your own words of wisdom to inspire me and our listeners?
Well, like we said before, we're the same person, so we came up with one together.
Okay, I'll let it fly. I'll let it fly for the two of you.
So, what we kind of landed on is that there's a human story in every cause.
Oh,
yeah.
Yes.
I think, even going back to our documentary, A Good Neighbor, talking about climate change, oftentimes when we talk about causes or that specifically, we think about the earth, the water, plastic water bottles, which we need to.
Yes, absolutely.
It's this big thing, rising tides. But I think we forget or may not realize there are human people impacted by climate change or affected by it. So we would say, no matter what cause you're passionate about, if you're part of a nonprofit that maybe promotes a cause, if you're fighting for that, look for that human story and tell that story, because I think that's what resonates with people so deeply and what allows people to kind of enlarge that capacity for empathy. And let that be kind of what even also inspires you and motivates you. I mean, on days when it's hard, creating a documentary is wonderful, but also very tedious and has its challenges. Yeah. And there would be days where I saw a spreadsheet producer day and your brain's a little fried, but I literally would think, Lucy has a migraine today. Her kids have bloody noses. Her family.
I can't stop. I can't take. Yeah.
So I can be motivated to continue in this work because a human being who has dignity and value is worth that. So I think rooting your cause in the human dignity and value will keep you going, as well as empower and I think inspire empathy for people to care about that as well.
So beautiful, you guys. There's a human story in every cause. The other thing that I don't know if this was intentional or unintentional on your part, but we have a lot of nonprofit executives that listen to the Agency for Change. And a lot of nonprofit executives, in addition to providing their mission-based service, have to think about, how am I going to raise funds for my organization? And honestly, a lot of entrepreneurs have to think about that too.
For sure.
I think what you said is key to that aspect of their business as well, because when you think about there being a human story in every cause, that's what helps make the fundraising work as well, right? At the end of the day, we're impacting people in a positive way. We're doing good with a capital G, which I love that saying, but it's the human element of that. And I think that's the magic of film too, because film, nothing portrays the human element the way that really good filmmaking does, because it just engages so many of the senses. And I love that you're doing it and doing it so well.
Thank you. Yeah, we've done several fundraising videos for nonprofits for whatever rounds or Colorado Gives Day or that. And we always talk to them about, well, who can we interview that gets the passion across? Or can we talk to some of the people that you've helped and get their story? And these, you know, it's kind of that very documentary style. Like, let's get the people in here and hear about people rather than just here's what we do and here's why it's important. So it's important because of people. Everything comes from people.
Everything. I love it. Such a brilliant quote, you guys. Honestly, it was one quote with the value of like 10. So thank you for that.
Glad we got it.
For our listeners, we've talked a lot about your work and how you do it and what you do. Those who would like to find out more about Farsighted Creative, how can they find you?
Well, we have our website is just farsightedcreative.com.
Easy enough to find, and we'll link that in the show notes as well.
We also have an Instagram page. Our handle is at farsighted.creative.
Nice.
And that's a great place where you can see, you know, projects we've worked on. We do a lot of fun, like behind the scenes stuff as well from our shoots, like any screenings we've done or events.
If you go to our website, you can sign up for our newsletter, which will also have,
nice.
If we're releasing anything or what we're up to, you can keep in touch with us that way too.
Fantastic. I love it. So as we wrap up this great conversation, I've just really enjoyed talking with you. I'd love to hear, what is the most important thing you would like us to remember about the work that you're doing?
Great question.
That is a great question.
I saved the zinger for last.
I think, you know, what kind of just initially comes to mind is that hopeful stories are worth telling, and partnering with hopeful stories are worth telling. I think about in our culture, you know, that there is a place and a purpose for, especially documentaries, you know, for kind of just lifting the veil and seeing all the critters underneath something and just saying, look at this is wrong. And that is very necessary. I think one thing that we both, you know, really carried into our work is we want to do that. Here's a problem, but also here's where we can go, kind of like we talked about earlier. So I think just remembering that these kind of stories, there's a need for them. General public is very hungry for them because we're so inundated every day with bad news.
Yeah. We don't really need too much more of that. We don't need more unresolved bad news. Yes.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think, just remembering that these kind of stories are necessary, and, you know, for people out there doing their own work, even just remembering that like videos and film are a great way to communicate that hope and value for whatever cause that they're working on as well. I think just seeing the need for hopeful stories and making space for those in whatever avenue.
Yeah. Well, Maggie and Brittany, I'm going to wrap this up by saying I feel more hopeful after talking with you. So I thank you for making space for this podcast in your busy schedules. And I'm going to say, I feel the world needs more people like you and more companies like Farsighted Creative. So thank you so much for taking time to talk with us today.
Thank you so much for having us. It's been wonderful talking to you too.
It's been so great. Thank you so much.
We hope you enjoyed today's Agency for Change podcast. To hear all our interviews with those who are making a positive change in our communities, or to nominate a changemaker you'd love to hear from, visit KidGlov.com at KIDGLOV.com to get in touch. As always, if you like what you've heard today, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.